thank Brother Ungrisen's son for opening the way. I also thank Brother Raphael, who has information about how he teaches mathematics through the use of the sacred drum. And where's your information, Brother Raphael? He will be passing the information out for time situation.
Angel tuner.
Yes, the angel tuner we have in the house. Thank you. And we want to move forward because we want to begin, but a few short words, please. Very, very short, because our brother is here. Yeah, very short.
Yes, peace to the family. Yes, my name is Raphael, and what I'm talking about is bringing the African performing arts into the consciousness community. There seems to be a difference. That is what is necessary. The drum was always part of our life. It was always part of our inheritance. But now it has been separated, but now the time has come. You're going to see more and more drums because there are more and more kids being taught. It's very important. Not only the drums, but the dance and the singing and the other instruments that are available. These things are very important because to do what we must do for what they have worked out here in Babylon is very important. The drums are essential. The first instrument or the second instrument on this earth. The first being our human bodies. The second instrument being the drums. Okay, so you heard Sister Kofunya talk about I can teach math and spelling on the drums using signs, symbols, and signals in the language. I will be very quick with this because they want to rush it off.
It's not time. Order.
Order and time. Okay. Yes. I get it. I understand order and time.
Yes.
Okay, so real fast, a very simple problem, 3 plus 3. I do first what I call the carrier rhythm. What this does, it carries the problem. Then I come with the problem. 3 slaps, plus 3. So we got 3 plus 3 equals 6. So that is just part of the language. It's extensive, and I'm working with it. I'm in 3 schools. Number 19 kicked me out the box, and now people are a lot more open. They're not as afraid as they were before. So I'm working on it, and that's the name of the tune. The drums are part of the conscious community as well, you know, and that's the name of that tune. Thank you very much.
Oh, what's your contact number?
As she spoke of, I have a nice flyer with information that you need to get a hold of me, my email and everything. What it is, it's the metaphysics of the drums on the back and drum rhythmatics on the front. Okay? All right, so that's the name of that tune right now. And so I'm going to move forward because I too want to hear what the master, Kaba.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Ashe for Brother Raphael for helping and assisting us opening the way. And you can come up here and get the information that he has. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. For those who just came in, you have to register at the register, please. And we do have some seats available. Once you register, please. And don't forget our vendors. We will take a break, right, Brother Kaba? When you're ready to take a break, and then we'll come back.
I was going to ask you, give me the time that you'd like me to break.
I'm gonna throw it right back at you.
8 o'clock.
Okay, we'll do an 8 o'clock break. And so, brothers and sisters, I would like you to please, if you will, stand up for our beloved brother, please. It's an honor to be among us today. The Shabaka Stone. Do you need the mic, brother?
I don't know. Do I need a mic?
Yes, yes.
I do.
I'll bring the stand over for you too.
I've spent my life with middle school children, so I don't need a mic. For those of you who have been around middle school children, you know what I'm talking about.
I don't know how high you want it.
Yeah. First, family, I would like to thank my sister Kafunya, who was the first contact that would invite me here back to Nicholas. Nicholas has always been a very special place. From the very beginnings, when it was in Manhattan on like around 17th Street, and I think it was Broadway.
Right.
And then I remember it went up to 125th Street, to the building where the National Black Theater was. And then I saw it branch out so that Nicholas has always been a very special place for us. And so when we talk about supporting our vendors, it just becomes so important to make sure that Nicholas not only survives, but it thrives.
Ashe.
There's a difference. It seems like one of the things that the politics of fear would do is to keep you in survival mode. Because as long as you're in survival mode, you don't have a chance to be in thrival mode. And when you're not in thrival mode, many times you can't produce because you're so busy.
Is the lighting good for you, sir, or you want it more?
Well, you can bring it up, and then when I start, you can bring it down. It's.
Okay.
I'm gonna work with y'all
Okay.
because it's all right with me. I operate at night. Panthers prowl at night.
That's right.
But I just want to thank my sister Monique for inviting us out to have Nicholas, to keep it in place and to keep the family legacy in place.
That's right.
Because this is a family legacy. And it's important that we understand that they say that money is the root of all evil. But money is also the root of our emancipation and liberation. Because the one thing that I found in life is that it's not what it is that matters, it's how you use it. And we have got to become very aware of the times we're living in. As I think of our brother, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in writing his book, The Fall of America, I can't help but recall some of the messages that he had for us. I can't forget that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would not be who he was if it wasn't for the Honorable Noble Drew Ali. We have to see the interconnections between our people and who we are as a people. We could not understand Noble Drew Ali if we didn't understand the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And we couldn't understand the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey if we didn't understand Dr. Booker T. Washington, who is the reason why Marcus Garvey came to America in the first place. And so it becomes important that we recognize and understand the interconnectedness of us as a people. And so I want to thank everybody who's been involved in this, and I know that my brother, to me, Dr. Lloyd Strayhorn,
Yes.
as it deals with numbers. The universe is numbers. You can't escape numbers. From the moment you wake up in the morning until the moment you go to bed, you are numbers, personified in motion.
Absolutely.
And one of the things about the Shabaka stone, in terms of the story itself, was I had written a book on Ethiopia when I was young, 1976, 1977. My mother worked for an oil company. She was a secretary. And in this large company, they had a Xerox machine. And I used to give work to my mother that I was typing on this book on Ethiopia, and she would take it to get copies done, because most of the folk in the Xerox were brothers and sisters. But at the same time, one of the things that we don't, some of us may not realize, is the fact that a lot of the books that I received growing up came through Xerox rooms in the major corporations, because brothers and sisters were making copies of the work of Gerald Massey, Albert Churchward, bringing back before they were republished. But one day my mother came home and said that the people on her job said, "Your son wrote this?" Which was my work on Ethiopia. He said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, if your son wrote this, he'll definitely like this." And that was my first copy of Stolen Legacy by Dr. George G.M. James. Back in 1976, before it was republished. It was on the market on the Xerox, on the underground. This is how I got most of the books, was through the underground, which came out of Xerox rooms around the country. Major oil companies, corporations, brothers and sisters were making copies. And they were distributing them to people such as myself and others who were interested in this information. So when I read this book, Stolen Legacy, I got to a chapter that dealt with something called the Memphite theology. And up until this point, I had never been exposed to information like this in my life. It just blew my mind. Page 139 to 151. And when I read this, I promised myself I was going to write a book. I didn't know when, I didn't know how. But I promised myself I was going to write a book. And eventually I did. The Memphite theology is a very ancient document that was either written on papyri or it was written or carved on leather. Because that's another aspect of our ancestors that we don't always realize. They carved on leather, along with carving on stones and writing on papyri. And when I read this book, at the age that I read it, I came to realize that our ancestors, and I want to go back and I want to say something. I understand what we mean when we say certain words, but words are very important. What you usher out is very important because that's the one thing you can't pull back. There is not a bone or atom in my body that's humble. If you look up the word humble, it's a bad word. It is when you put yourself in a lower position in order to put someone else up in a higher position. It's a psychological condition known as the imposter syndrome. It is the cornerstone to the brain's function that allows a person to be enslaved. I tend to use the word graceful. Not humble, but graceful. Full of grace.
Yes, great.
Which means that, as Dr. Clark used to always tell us, he said, "I never met a mind finer than mine. But I have had the honor and pleasure of being in the presence of minds that are as fine as mine. Dr. Gabriel Yibo, brilliant mathematician, brother that I had a chance to work with back in the 90s. You can Google, well, at the time, Booker T. Coleman, Dr. Gabriel Yibo, when he came forward with Gagut, the God Almighty grand unified theory that unified the outer world with the inner world. And Dr. Gabriel Yibo used to always tell me, own your greatness. To each and every one of you, own your greatness. Don't put it to the side. Understand your greatness doesn't make you greater than someone else. It just makes you great. And as a people, what each and every one of us in this room has gone through, and what our young people will go through, you are great, whether you realize it or not. And part of the imposter syndrome, the psychology of enslaving a person, to make someone think that they are less than somebody else for whatever superficial reasons they may want to create. And when you look at the ridiculousness of the oxymoron that we say white supremacy is an oxymoron. An oxymoron are two words that are absolutely opposite to each other. You say, oh yo man, you dumb smart. You know, stupid smart. You know, that's an oxymoron. White supremacy is in that category. Because when you study the science of it, there is nothing supreme about white. In fact, in science, you deal with two concepts. Because I don't get into superiority, inferiority. I would not put us in that kind of a position. I would not do to us as a people what was done to them by thinking that simply because of your melanation or lack of it makes you superior. Because Dr. King was right. It is the content of your character.
Right.
It will always be the content of your character. Because I'm looking at some people that are well melanated and they ain't got too much going on. Now, I'm not going to talk about the Supreme Court. Or, I'm going to leave it alone. But there are people who live amongst us that we realize that they have very serious issues, emotional issues. And what the Shabaka stone did for me was to, at a very young age, to be able to allow me to understand how powerful knowledge and wisdom is. And yes, I am very happy, I'm very proud it came from Kush. I'm very happy and proud that it came and originated in the minds of a people that are derogatorily called the Pygmies, who are called the Twa, the Mbuti, the Khoi, the San of Central and Southern Africa, the first family, the first human family that came into existence somewhere around 200, maybe 300,000 years ago. We'll get the numbers right later on. But this is where the first family was. And as I was listening to Brother Ankh Rising, and he was talking about the origins of us as a people, when someone tells a perfect lie, the truth is unbelievable. And a perfect lie has been told. And it has been enforced by a mind that has no conscience, no dignity, no respect, rooted in inferiority and a lack of self-respect. I don't speak in absolutes, so I'm not calling everybody that. I'm just talking as a people. You have represented a very fragile condition. And you've attempted to put on other people through, it's called dynamic projection, your own insecurities on the people that you wish to oppress. And psychologically, when someone can get you to believe an illusion, even though it's an illusion, it becomes your reality. Power is the ability to define someone's reality and have them accept that definition as if it were their own. For hundreds of thousands of years, the only human beings that walked the planet were people of melanation. There was a time when the only life that existed on the planet was in Africa. And at a certain anointed time, at a certain appointed time, when these individuals, starting as hunter-gatherers, becoming agriculturalists, fisher people, and then technologists, after they got their show together, then they took it on the road. And they peopled the planet. They peopled Asia, they peopled Europe, they peopled America, and they brought to America a civilization and a technology. And there are some of us in this room right now who, while we have the DNA of those Africans stolen post-1492, we also have the DNA of Africans that were here 200,000 years ago.
Thank you.
That's very important to understand. Because we already know that Columbus himself, Cologne, himself said that he met Africans going back to Africa on his way to America. We already know that it has already been written by Richard Hakluyt that there were Africans that were trading on the waters throughout the world before the Europeans had come out of the caves. This is history. This is science. This is not personal. I'm not saying it's superior or inferior. I don't deal with black supremacy. I deal with black primacy, which means we were first. And we laid out on this planet an understanding of who we were, and we based it on nature. Nature was our teacher. Nature taught us how to talk. When we looked up and saw this magnificent bird with these wings flying above us, the sounds that they made, so we called the bird Heru. When we heard the heart and we heard it beat, appa, 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 we called the heart Ab, and we called the soul Ba. And so Appa was the heart soul that was weighed on the scales of Ma'at. Appa, the sounds. We saw another bird, Ak, Ak. We called it the vulture. And it became the letter A in Medu Neter, or hieroglyphics. Nature answers all of our questions. And what the Shabaka stone did in rewriting a much older document was that the Shabaka stone gave praise and honor to a much elder ancestor, to Shabaka of the Kushite dynasty, somewhere around 710 BC, before the Common Era. And he rewrote it. And we'll talk about it, but you see these top two lines right here. These top two lines talk of the history of how Shabaka came upon the document. And then you have 62 vertical lines that talk about the three philosophies of how the cosmic universe came into existence, how the earth came into existence, how the human family came into existence, and how the human family was able to create the technology that would break through and would give knowledge. And what's disappointing to me is that our ancestors at this time, not just Shabaka stone, but when it was written originally in the Memphite text, they are thousands of years more advanced intellectually and spiritually than we are right now. What the Shabaka stone uncovers as it relates to human potential. You see, I don't want us to think we're saying this to make us feel good.
Right.
I'm not into feeling good. In fact, when I'm feeling good as a black man in America in 2023, I start feeling bad. When I start feeling comfortable, I start getting uncomfortable. But we have to study our history. We have to study our culture. We have to understand where we came from and the excellence that we still have to continue. And our ancestors had it all laid out for us. These top two lines talk about how they came upon the worm-eaten document. This is why we don't know if it was papyri or if it was leather. But what Pharaoh Shabaka said about 710, we call it the 25th dynasty, but it's not the 25th dynasty. It's really the 6th Napatan dynasty of Kush. But because we didn't write the books and we let other people write our history, they are now interpreting an understanding that never existed. There is no such thing as a first dynasty of Kemet. The first dynasty of Kemet is only a continuation of the Kushite dynasties that was coming south from what we today call Sudan, Ethiopia, Djibouti, Eritrea, Somalia. It was Africans that understood scientifically that this northern area in Kemet, we today call Memphis, they called it Hikupata. They came to realize that that geographically, scientifically was very important, and that's why they built the pyramids there. They knew they were going to build pyramids there before they even got there. This is how deep and genius our ancestors are, and that's the DNA that's in us and our children today. But when someone tells a perfect lie, the truth is unbelievable. And if they can get you to believe an illusion, it becomes your reality. And what we have to do is cut this thought process loose. The Indo-European civilizations have never lasted more than 500 years in all of their existence since they came out of the ice caves. The first really major Indo-European is the Persians coming from Iran that's going to get up into Kemet, about 525 BC, Cambyses. That civilization of Cambyses is going to last basically from 525 BC until about 332 BC when the Greeks come in. And the Greeks don't exist. There's no such thing as Greeks. These are northern tribes coming down south, riding through and meeting African civilizations in the Mediterranean basin. Cambyses is going to last a little over 181 years as a civilization. They didn't bring nothing into Africa. And they didn't understand what they got anyway. And then the Greeks are going to come in. I'm going to call them Greeks just so we know, because that's what the lie has been. Greeks don't exist. And I know that we all think that, for instance, English is not a language. Spanish is not a language. French is not a language. German is not a language. Romanian is not a language. Portuguese is not a language. To be a language, you have to have a specific script that identifies that language and expresses that script and that language. English, Spanish, French, Dutch, Italian, German uses Greek script. Okay? Spanish, azul, A-Z-U-L. English, blue, B-L-U-E. Same letters, but the symbols are just rearranged. The A, the Z, the U, the L. The B, the L, the U, the E. Same script, Greek. But guess what? There's no such thing as Greek script. Because when they looked at Champollion and others that were studying Medu-Neter, they studied what's known as the Rosetta Stone. And in the Rosetta Stone, there's 3 different writing systems. The top one is Medu-Neter or hieroglyphics. The next one is hieratic, which is a script of Medu-Neter. And then the third one is, here's where they get you. They say that it is classical Greek. It's not classical Greek. It's another African script that the Greeks adapted. So what am I telling the children? When you write your alphabetas, you're writing an African script. And that script came out of Ethiopia, came out of Kush. We live in an illusion, family.
Yes.
And we just don't know how great we are. We honestly don't know how great we are, because you know how I know? This is science. We wouldn't be in the position we're in. Dr. Francis Caress Welsing told us that more powerful than an atomic bomb is self-respect and self-love. When you love yourself, there are certain things that you do. There are certain feelings that you have towards yourself. We had ancestors on the plantation that had a deep sense of self-respect. No matter what they went through, they still had a deep sense of self-respect and self-love for themselves, for what they had achieved. Family, I don't know if we realize what we've achieved. Because we listen. Look, I don't want to point no fingers at news, media, but I want to point a finger. You ain't no good. You're not based in Ma'at. You're not based in truth and justice, balance and harmony, order and arrangement. I brought a book with me. There was a young company called Melanin Origins. They did a series of books. And they said to me, brother, we want to pay tribute to the work that you've done, but we want to do something on the characteristics of Ma'at. And they said, we want to ask you, what is your favorite characteristic of Ma'at? And without a doubt, my favorite characteristic of Ma'at is reciprocity. What goes around, you shall reap what you have sown. Look at the world around us, family. Everybody wants us to take sides. I got some advice. Mind your business. Because neither of them have ever helped us. And now all of a sudden they're in trouble. And now they're going to Mammy and Pappy asking for help, and they get offended if we don't take sides. Reciprocity. They shall reap what they have sown. The Greek civilization was brought down by the Romans in 30 BC. Even the Romans don't exist. Romans come from a place. They're the same people that the Greeks are. They come down and they overcome this area that is at this time called Etruria. And the capital of Etruria is Rhorea. And this is where you get Italy and Rome from. They don't even have sense enough to create something on their own. And yet we don't know this. African people were in Italy. They were in Sardinia. They were in Corsica. Long before these other people came from the ice mountains, a couple thousand years ago. We don't know this. Rome existed between 30 BC and about 426. I think they started to fall earlier than that, but I'll give them 426, because even if you give them 426, they only existed, 456 years. And then Europe went into the Dark Ages. They went into a period of non-growth, nothing happening. And it wasn't until 711 when a group of brothers and sisters, known as, we call the Moors, went in and brought civilization. And before we brought in the schools and the universities and all of the other great things that we brought in something very important. Soap. We said, you gotta wash your funky self. And then after you wash yourself, we brought in something known as alkuhl, A-L-K-U-H-L, spiritual waters. And today we call it alcohol, because they said after you wash your funky self, disinfect your funky self. We brought in toothbrush. We brought in olives and strawberries and grapes. We brought in terrace farming. We created the first universities. We're so proud that a group of folk that studied under the Moors came to America, came to New York, started a university called King's College. And now we're so proud to say we one of the first people to graduate from Columbia University. But we don't know we created Columbia University. We created Oxford University, Cambridge University, Salamanca, Coimbra in Portugal. We did this, but we don't know. Because when someone tells a perfect lie, the truth is unbelievable. And so what I want to do, family, is I want to take you back to Shabaka stone. This basically is what it looks like. It is in London in the British Museum. Okay? I had a chance to visit our family in UK. And I had to take a picture outside the Shabaka stone. This was a dream come true for me. Because remember, I'm caught up in Shabaka stone 1976. This is 2009. This is my first time in the presence of this stone. And here's the UK family. There were sisters putting their pineal gland up on the stone. Sisters know what to do. And I put my pineal gland up on the stone. I follow what sisters do.
Okay.
Brothers, okay? Don't ever underestimate the power of the black woman.
That's right. That's right.
And so is true also for the black man. But we got to balance this out.
Okay.
And we have to understand as we watch what's going on, there's a rising in the world. We are now moving into what's called the age of Hapi. Some people call it the age of Aquarius. We're moving into the age of Hapi, which is the water bearer. We're coming up out of what we call Pisces, the age of the fish. Every great year, there's a 26,000 year calendar that has 12 houses. Every house is 2,160 years. When you do the math, it comes out to 25,920. So our ancestors had like 80-year play in terms of time, but they had a 26,000 year calendar. Every calendar begins in the age of Pisces, where the fish come forward.
Yes.
And out of the fish coming forward, you're then going to have information that's going to support your coming up out of the darkness of the beginnings of all things, the ages of chaos. Right? And this is what we're going through right now. You see the earth? Earth done had enough of certain people on the planet, let me tell you. Because I was walking, the earth told me through the leaves.
Very good.
Be careful.
Yes. Right.
Because if you get in my way, I don't mean you no harm, baby. But if you get in my way when I'm going after them, that's why I'm telling us, mind your business. Because if we start getting involved in their problem, it reminds me of Malcolm when he told us about the difference between the house Negro and the field Negro.
Right.
See, my house not on fire. In fact, I wish a wind would come through. You see, Massa, we not sick. You sick. And I'm going to send the doctor in the opposite direction. I don't mean to get like this, family. But I mean to get like this. Again, in front of the Shabaka stone. Let me tell you something about the Shabaka stone. This is an image of what the Shabaka stone represents. You've got the sun, you've got the mountains, and you've got the water. The original Trinity. Hikapata or Memphis and Napata that is where this dynasty traveled up and took over Kemet. And in taking over Kemet out of Kush, because you see, first of all, here's science. We're dealing with what's known as cataracts. We're dealing with a river that's flowing from south to north. Whenever a river originates, for the most part, south of the equator,
That's right.
the river flows from south to north. We here in America are so used to being north of the equator, we think in terms of going down south, okay, and up north. But the Kemites on this river, they went down north and up south. Because you talk in the flow of the river. So if you talk about in the flow of the river, then the cataracts, which are like rocky interruptions that redirect the river. When you look at the cataract, here's the third cataract. Here's the third cataract here. see this cut here? Here is a fourth cataract that changes the course of the river. You have the second cataract up here, and then you have the first cataract up here. But whoever wrote this had to have been from the north. Because if you had written it according to the flow of the river, what is the sixth cataract really is the first. And what is the first really is the sixth and the last. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You see, because in an illusion, they can get you to think that the first is the sixth and the sixth is the first. They can get you to believe that the first is the last and the last is the first, if you live the illusion. But once you break the hold of the illusion and you begin to look at things from a scientific perspective, then there's a whole nother way of looking at the world. Okay, again, I'm looking at Napata and Meroe, very important areas south that's going to come up into Kemet and develop an understanding of how the universe came into being. The sixth Napatan dynasty was the restoration age of Kush. This Kushite empire existed for over 1,000 years. Part of this time was also known as the 25th dynasty. It was started by Kushites from southern Nubia from the capital Napata. Once conquered, this combined kingdom of Kush and Kemet, or Egypt, ruled from Napata, also called Ta Neter, or the land of God. See, that's what we called our capital. The land of God.
Yes.
See, once we understand this, family, it takes us into a whole different perspective. And one of the things that I hope as we leave this evening, that the person that leaves is not the person that came in.
Right.
Because if it's just a presentation, I didn't do my job.
Right.
Because I came to make you move beyond knowing Africa to being African. There's a difference. I know a lot of people know a lot about Africa,
Yeah.
but they're not African. The Napatan kings, there were 16 unknown kings of Napata who preceded Alara and Kashta. The reason why I'm bringing this up is the importance of understanding that a lot of what we look at the players, but we don't know where the players came from. In other words, the children that are in this room, and they write a story about the children in this room one day, will not maybe realize where they came from. So when they take their family picture, they leave grandma and grandpa out. Well, that's not a family picture.
No.
That is a family picture, but that ain't the whole family.
Ashe.
You know, family, Professor Brooks Bertram is the one in Egypt, Child of Africa, wrote an essay that really talked about the importance of understanding this concept. There is no first through 30 dynasties. That was created by someone that was contracted to give a overall history of the kings that they were aware of. But in reality, the dynasties themselves go back much further. And this is why it is so wonderful that our young people are here. Because they may not perceive it on the level that an adult will, but they're feeling the energy that's in the room.
Oh, yeah.
And that's very important for our young people to understand and to be able to feel. And in so many of the presentations, I was doing a presentation over at the Alkaline Oasis with my brother, Mr. G, over on Halsey, okay? He wrote a book on Dr. Sebi. And he asked me if I would come and talk about my experiences with Dr. Sebi, because I've been going to Dr. Sebi since 1988, October of 1988. Because when I was reading the Amsterdam News, I was following his court case. And in October of 88, the Amsterdam News said that he had been exonerated. And I said, any black man exonerated by the court system, I need to know who he is.
Absolutely.
So that next Saturday, because I read it on Wednesday, that next Saturday, I was right up there, 616 Pacific Street with Dr. Sebi. there were children in the room, and there was a dad that picked the child up and was leaving because the child was being a child. I said, no, don't leave. Stay, I can deal with him. I've been around children all my life. I taught middle school, high school, elementary school, kindergarten, college. I've been around children in every aspect of their life. Don't go no place. Let the children do what they do. But it's important that the children be here.
Yes.
We do so many activities where we say leave the children at home, or we need to get a babysitter. But why are we doing this if it's not for the children? Everything I do for the children, but I work through adults. When I've studied African civilizations, everything that goes on within the community, within the village, is done in order to make the children better than them. And when I say better, I'm careful with my words, because every generation does the very best that they can, and then they bequeath or they hand down to the younger generation the things that they've learned. But if the children are not present, if we don't start activities that include children to be there, yeah, you can cry, you can talk back, you can do whatever you want to do. But just be there to pick up the vibrations. And this is what I've studied about our ancestral line, is that Alara and Kashta gave way to who would become the Pianki, the Taharka, the Shabaka in the family. May I say something else while we're on this subject, on dynasties? Baby daddies do not create dynasties.
All right, now let's talk about it.
I think I heard my brother Lloyd Strayhorn speak on in terms of not being able to spell commitment. Because see, we black folk don't have a problem with relationships. We have a whole bunch of relationships. In fact, sometimes that's the problem. What we don't have is commitment. If you can walk away from your family or your wife, you can walk away from your nation. And if you can walk away from your nation, then you're not doing anybody any good. Because I can't trust when stuff hit the fan. I need to know you there. People build nations. People build nations. Families build dynasties.
Right.
Nations rise and fall,
That's right.
but dynasties last forever because they're family oriented. What I'd like to do now is, as we move to this point, we're going to get deeper into Shabaka Stone. What I want to do, family, is I hope you all came with money.
Yes, sir, brother.
You know, to support the vendors.
Yes.
Family, when we have events like this, you find out 2 weeks ahead, stop putting your money away. We have to do this, family. We have to support the vendors. And we have to not only support the vendors, but we also have to be able to support the vendors in the way that they can become better at what they do instead of trying to cut corners to make it happen. Activities like this should be flowing constantly. People should be coming in and out of this store, purchasing whatever it is that they have. And so whoever the vendors are in the building, support the vendors. And if by chance you spend all your money with the vendors and you don't have no more, come back tomorrow. Find out where they are, find out where they work, and bring your money to them, because that money is going to allow them to do better at what they do. Now, family, I know we got some imposters out there. Okay, so let's not play games. We know that there are folk out here that will take your money and they buy themselves a Lex.
Right.
Okay, we know that they'll move miles away from the people where they got the money from. We know that. Okay? It is up to the vendors to do good business with the community.
Yes.
So that when the business is done, you recommend your friends to go to them.
Yes.
Be it a restaurant, be it Nubian Heritage, be it, my brother, please, name again? Cameron. Okay? Because this brother gonna fix your body. Because you know, when you go all week long around the Yorugu, you know you all tensed up by Friday, Saturday. You need someone to break it down for you so you can loosen up. Because you tight out here in the world.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about. You tight just getting up and probably taking a bus. How long does it take in your day before someone reminds you you're black? It don't take long at all.
Nope.
And what do you think it's doing to our children as they're responding to what's actually happening with them? So, Shabaka Stone. This is the book that I wrote to honor Shabaka as Shabaka honored his ancestors. Let me tell you something about the concept of this book. This book was published in the early 20s. If you go back to when the Memphite text was written and Shabaka rewrote it, okay, that time span, from when it was first written and Shabaka wrote it, and now take it from 710 when Shabaka wrote it and when I wrote my book, more time elapsed between when it was first written and Shabaka than when Shabaka wrote it and today. That's how ancient this document is. And when we come back from our break, we're going to go deeper into Shabaka Stone to help us understand. However, Shabaka Stone is the Old Testament and the New Testament combined.
All right.
It is, in fact, where the Abrahamic religions came from. And the other thing about what's interesting about the Old Testament and New Testament is that before what we today call Judaism, Christianity gave birth to Judaism, which is another interesting thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you read the Old Testament, you get a sense of Moses and the 5 books of Moses. But the 5 books of Moses came long after the Amen priesthood, because what you're dealing with is that Christianity came out of the Amen priesthood, and Judaism came out of the Aten priesthood. Okay? Now, I don't put any religion down. I honor and respect all religions. It's their interpretation of the religion I have a problem.
There you go.
Okay.
The original story is a metaphor for life. It is not real human beings that actually lived. Moses was Akhenaten. Akhenaten's parents were Solomon and Sheba. And the Jesus was King Tut. Historically. They take our historical figures and they create human beings in history. And they create a religion out of our historical figures. But because that was so heavy, I knew I had to write a book that was going to introduce you to Shabaka Stone, which is spirituality before religions. Because I knew that Shabaka Stone was going to come at our people in a way that they would be taken back by this information. But when someone tells a perfect lie, the truth is unbelievable.
Yes, it is.
But in order for me to start my venture, I had to honor someone that had a great impact on my life, and that was William Leo Hansberry. I had to do a intellectual libation, because whenever we do, as you saw Ankh Ra rising, am I correct there, Brent?
You got it, brother.
I got it? Ankh Ra rising.
That's his new name.
Okay. When I heard the brother doing the libation, it is believed from the African tradition that whenever you break off to do something, that you need guidance, you always call upon your ancestors.
Yes.
You never walk alone. And I felt that since I was going to start writing books, my first book had to be an intellectual libation to the origin, to the brother that actually wrote the first African studies curriculum in America in an accredited college at Howard University in 1923. So I paid homage to this brother, and I asked him to guide me as I would write my further books. And then, of course, I've got reciprocity. Now, what I've also brought for the children, this is how I teach math. You know, in the early grades, first grade, we use what's called manipulatives. But we're using bears and monkeys and balloons. And I said, no, let's use African symbols to count. Because our children should constantly be immersed in visuals of their culture and understanding. I have incense.